Hello, welcome to the Gouled Show, and today we'll cover the history of religion. Yes, today's episode is an episode on the subject of religion. Of course, like the two things that you should never mention if you want everyone to get along is politics and religion. The ultimate answer, the ultimate meaning to everything. Why are we here? What's life all about? And people, we all severely disagree. We all severely disagree. So how did religion begin? Well, back in the day, way back in the day, there was no religion. People believed all sorts of uncodified, unstandardized things. People believed that there are spirits in the stream, spirits in the wind, spirits in the trees, and in the plants, in the sky. And eventually, it got more and more fleshed out to the point there were pantheons of gods. Each meant to represent an aspect of the forces around us in nature that we're in awe of. The earliest documented religion is, of course, there are a lot of very early religions. As far as we can look back, there's been some form of belief system, and especially if they're more hierarchical, more settled societies, it tended to become more standardized as time went on. I'm not giving a very good episode. Whatever. This is for a specialized episode. So Hinduism is the earliest documented religion. The Upanishads, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, which is in the Ramayana, or the other way around. And I've tried to read a little bit of those texts. I'm not going to get into that, but yeah. It's a very different philosophy. It's its own philosophy, and it has a lot of negatives as well, some positive. Let's not be qualitative about religion. Let's just talk about the history. I'm gonna get some water. Anyways, the more important set of religions to most people is the Semitic religions. My God, I have a lot of knowledge on this shit. Why can't I express it right now? Oh, whatever, we've got the hat. Anyways, and I was trying to keep this hidden, but I guess now it's been seen. And anyway, the Ramayana. I've completely lost. Let's just make this a silly show. This is just silly. We've lost the plot. Maybe we could just make this about the fucking cat. Alright, this is a fez. This is a novelty fez. It's not like a traditional real style, but whatever. It looks close enough to the real thing. I looked at a bunch of pictures of people with fezzes on. The only difference is that the top tends to have like a point. This one has no point. It's just a novelty fez. But it looks as good as the real thing, really. There's not, I noticed it. And it's a red felt hat with a tassel. The mirror neurons, monkey see, monkey do. Anyway, so the Semitic religions are all interrelated, which is very, very important, I feel. The people who believed in Ashtar, the goddess of fertility, that was the Carthaginians and the Phoenicians. Of course, the Phoenicians gave birth to the Carthaginians. The people who believed in Marduk, that was the Babylonians, and I think some of the other Mesopotamians. Of course, anyways, the people who believed in El, and that's the traditional name in most Semitic languages for God, the supreme male deity. Ra, Amun-Ra, of course. You can see where enough. Nobody can see exactly where. Anyways, but we'll focus on El, Elohim, Adonai, Jehovah, Yahweh, good old-fashioned God, as most people see it. And coming out of those Semitic religions, the religion of the Hebrews too comes from that same tradition. They bubbled out of the same earth, so to speak. A belief system that originated in Mesopotamia, and that's why Abraham and the story of the Bible begins in Mesopotamia, and he makes the journey from there to the land of Canaan and conquers it from the heathen people who lived there before, which was actually, the Canaanites were not a people who the Hebrews conquered. It was the Hebrews' very own ancestors. But in the Bible, it says that Abraham and his sons Isaac and Jacob and Ishmael and all that, they went over there and they eliminated the Canaanites. Well, the Canaanites were actually their very own grandparents. It's very interesting how folk history from the past, but let's not go into discrediting the Bible. That's not what this is about. But that is the true history, which the Bible does differ from. And anyway, so the beginning of the Hebrew religion, and as many people know, the Hebrew God went from being a supreme deity to becoming a monotheistic deity early on in all the great holy books. God is clearly speaking to partners and cohorts and other people up there in heaven with him. That's the other gods. This is true of the Quran, it's true of the Bible. Who's God speaking to up there in heaven? It's the other gods who have been removed over time. And thus we arrive at Tawheed, we arrive at monotheism. And the heart of the main religions of the world today, Christianity and Islam, monotheism, the belief in one. This was a revolution in people's way of thinking, because before, different belief systems didn't necessarily completely exclude one another and say, hey, what we're saying is true and what you're saying is not true. You're liars, or you believe in some sort of fucking demonic evil thing, and we have the true one and only message. And I believe in the history books, you can see that this is where the starts of anti-Semitism and the obsession with the Hebrews began, was the fact that they, unlike every other tribe, said that they had the one true narrative and everyone else is wrong. They're just wrong. They were. Tough fucking luck. Fucking, we're right, you're wrong. And that was revolutionary for the time. And what else about monotheism? Yeah, monotheism. Of course, uh, yeah, it took time until the Holy Book was codified. The Old Testament, it was codified over time, multiple iterations through multiple languages, uh, and yeah, written by many authors, which of course we'll get into the next chapter of monotheism, and then you have Jesus. Jesus, he was. There's something very interesting about the story of Jesus. Of course there is, because it's timeless. The sacrificial lamb. No, let's not get into that. But yeah, of course, the analogy of human sacrifice, animal sacrifice. Of course, Elohim takes the burnt offerings. Yeah, this show really is not what I wanted it to be, but it's something. I was thinking, the reason why I turned this on is because I was thinking you can't pretend like you don't exist. No matter what you're doing, I've always felt like my tongue is too large for my mouth. But it's unique right now. It's like my tongue's fucking constricted. I'm babbling. I feel like inside something is really fucking snapped. Anyways, I think my problem here is my vocalization. But the fucking information I'm giving is pretty solid, so I'm just gonna keep going. And anyway, yeah, monotheism, Jesus. Yeah. All right, here's the thing. Maybe this is. Some people say this is like a narrative. All right, I don't think this is a narrative. Some people say this is an atheistic narrative, but I say it's just the truth. The time that the Christ, the anointed one, the Savior, the Messiah, Jesus, that character popped up all around the Mediterranean under the Roman Empire during this time. Supreme deities are being taken and were being made into demigods of sorts and savior deities. And it just happened to Judaism, what was happening to the Egyptian religion, what was happening to the religion of the Carthaginians, what was happening to the religion of the Romans and the Greeks, what was happening to the religion of the Illyrians and the religion of the Syrians and the Mesopotamians, and even the Persians and the mystery cults and the Mithraic mystery cults, and but all that shit was going on, and around the same time, it seems as if, like, following in lockstep with that tradition that was going around the first century, all of a sudden, Judaism has its own adaptation of that same thing. And let me tell you now, it was just a trend. It was simply a trend that was going on with religion at the time. And Judaism, being very unique in character to begin with, happened to seize upon the tradition and create something very unique and very powerful. And that became the Christ, and that became the Anointed One, and that became the Savior of mankind. And the reason why I say that is because I looked at, like, the mystery cults and stuff, and, like, if you're looking into the actual information around the mystery cults, it's not the exact same thing as Jesus, but, like, if you have a wide enough view of history and you know enough about, like, you can see it's following in a trend. It's a trend that's going on, kind of. But that's whatever. I'm not gonna say what that is, but yeah. So. And in my opinion, I like the way that I've been raised theologically and stuff. I've never thought that Christianity came off as that monotheistic, because there is monotheistic Christianity. I mean, like, in terms of what I would have considered it. there is what's it called, Unitarianism, but most Christianity is Trinitarian, like the vast majority. But there's a very small minority of Christians are Unitarians, and to me, monotheism doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're a monotheist or not. Monotheism is a little bit cleaner in like philosophically. I don't know, whatever it's like, but it's still all false when it comes down to like what I believe. I don't think any of that shit's true, but philosophically, I see, there's less problems posed by monotheism than by polytheism. Anyway, and then after that, I alluded to it earlier, but Islam cleans up something that was a problem with the religion of the Hebrews all along. The many different languages, many different authors, many different iterations of the book. Islam was somebody taking Tawheed, monotheism, to the natural extreme, and really putting their foot down philosophically on all the concepts and saying, this makes more sense. And what they did was they had one book, one language, one iteration, which actually is not true. There's multiple iterations, but whatever, fuck. We're told it's one iteration, and I think it's supposed to be taken as only one iteration, but there have been it gives itself that claim that there's only been one iteration, but the truth is there are multiple iterations of the Quran before 1965. That's actually the truth, and it's a difference in the harakat, I believe, the freaking like vowels. There's actually differences in the vowels between different copies of the Quran in different geographic regions. Before it was codified in 1965 in Cairo, all the muftis came together and said, this is how we're going to have it be. Before that point, in multiple parts of the world, there are different vowels for the words. That means you could take it very differently. Imagine if you went through any book like A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, and some of the vowels were different in some of the copies, and the words were different in some of the copies. Like, it's different books, slightly, it's whatever. That's very particular, but we're being a little philosophical. Anyways. And what else did Islam seek to clean up? No Trinity, so it's a true monotheism. Well, one thing I do think it flubs on, though, and this is my personal opinion, this is the Gouled show, so I'm going to give you my perspective, is Islam was also supposed to be an end to idolatry. Now, I do not agree that it is an end to idolatry, because the Qibla, even one of Muhammad's Sahaba, when it fell from the heavens and they carried it off in the carpet or whatever, like you see in the drawings, even one of the Sahaba, and we quoted this a lot, quite famously said that if the Prophet had not kissed it himself, I wouldn't have kissed it. And what he's saying there is that seeing a stone as sacred does start to lean into the territory of idol worship. And I'd say that's one of Islam's, according to its own personal internal integrity, one place where it really sort of, it isn't quite as integritous, is on the point of the Qibla. The Qibla, I'd say, could be considered, it's a black stone that fell from heaven, and it's the direction to which you pray, and it is a physical, earthly, it's what you're praying to. So how is it different to praying to a carving? Just because it's a black stone. Apparently, Allah is carven and symbolized as a black stone rather than as a figurine. And that's one of the reasons why I come down so hard on this is because I was raised Muslim, and from that, in our own perspective, we're very hard on other philosophies. We go really hard, like any minor inconsistency, and that's one that I see in the great religion of Islam that's a big inconsistency in my eyes, is the Qibla. Is it a form of idolatry? I'd say if you're not going out of your way to be like, oh no, why wouldn't it be a form of idolatry? I see it as no different from somebody praying to a statue of Ganesh. That is actually the direction, the point of prayer. And that is incredibly blasphemous, but we live in a free fucking country. Everyone could argue, everyone can fucking... that is very blasphemous in Islam. That would fucking, yeah, very, very blasphemous. Yeah, anyways, and we're gonna skip over Islam. We didn't even talk about the Vedic religions. Of course, you had Hinduism and then Buddhism, and you know, whatever. And then Sikhism was under the Mughal Empire, which was an Islamic empire founded in Bombay by Guru Nanak, and it had, I think, 11 or 10 gurus. I think 11. No, 10. It was 10 gurus, and I think the holy book, the Guru Granth Sahib, is also a living guru. And what is Sikhism? Some people who are disrespectful towards Sikhism would say it's just a melding between Islam and Hinduism, but that's not true. Actually, it's its own religion. I don't know what to call it, but the thing is, the environment that it grew up in was under an Islamic empire in a mostly Hindu country, and I think people saw the conflict between those two things, and they naturally made a new way forward, and that was and it flourished in the Punjab, and that's Sikhism, and that's my opinion about it. That I'm pretty sure that is the historical circumstances around it. Like, that's not even in question. It was people viewing both Islam and Hinduism, and they're looking for some sort of middle way. Anyways, what else is there in terms of religion? Well, here's the thing, like I said about religion to begin with. Religion and politics are the two things that if you want to have people not get along, you bring that shit up. Everyone's going to be at each other's fucking throats. All religions can be used to do good and used to do evil. Whereas religion now, well, you had the advent of, what's it called? Godlessness, heathenry. Atheism. And this was noticed, I don't believe that atheism has a birth date. I guess maybe I'm one of those religious people who's everyone's actually born in my fucking belief system. Everyone, naturally, as a human being, when you're born, you agree with me. But what I'm trying, I guess everyone feels like that, don't they? Yeah. And anyways, I think it's just viewing reality accurately without the guise of any superstition or supernatural pretenses, and injecting nonsense into reality. It means not injecting the nonsense. It's living without injecting the nonsense into reality. And I think people have always been aware, and people have always been skeptical. If you look at the historical records, I think this proves itself. All times, all places, there have been people who, whenever the supernatural, spiritual, blah, blah, blah gets talked about, there's always at least some people who are I don't fucking believe it. No. And people who are, heathens, heretics. And, of course, the heathens and the heretics aren't always completely rational, but oftentimes they are. Anyways, So I believe there's always been skepticism. There's always been skepticism. And the scientific methods really drove it forward because guess what? A lot of these supernatural claims are completely unsubstantiated. And of course, the more humanity's relying on science and objective measures to get shit done, the more superstition and supernatural beliefs fall by the wayside. And even religious people are starting to become a lot more centered and a lot less superstitious. Everyone's seeing reality for what it is, and maybe all this religious stuff is just allegory. Maybe it was all just poetry. Maybe it's just our history. And I think we're talking very big now. I think and that's my honest fucking opinion. I think you can't really understand human history at all without understanding the main religions, and I think it really has shaped everything about the way the world is. Like, people really fucking believe that shit. People still really believe it. People really believe. I believed. When I believed, I really fucking believed. Like, I don't think you can just discount it and throw it in the trash bin. It's still with us. Like, the vast majority of people still believe some form, some religious belief. Most people are religious. It's just normal. I don't think it's true, but I think it's normal. I don't think the truth is normal. Um, anyway, I think that was a very good episode, coming at 25 minutes. Now, we can go longer. This is a very good subject. Sure. I think that's gonna. If I do go longer, it's gonna be a different video.